And welcome to Superhero Pantheon. My name is Jerome Cuson. You can find me on Twitter at JeromeC1985. Also, you can find us at Hero Pantheon on Twitter as well if you would like to communicate with us. As mentioned before, we are going to be reviewing the most recent Batman movie as he finally gets a proper article, The Batman. Of course, joining me is Brian DeBrain. You can follow him on Twitter at Brian DeBrain. And Brian, 1995 cinema apparently is having a tremendous influence on Batman. We know that Heat, one of the best movies from that year, had a clear influence on The Dark Knight. We know that Seven had a clear impact on The Batman. My question for you, though, Brian, when does Showgirls get its time to shine?
Hopefully not in a Catwoman movie, because then that'd be too much. Way too much. But
we did kind of get a Showgirls version of Catwoman actually in 2004, which you could get.
That's what I was alluding to. That's what I was alluding to. I thought you set that up perfectly, and I thought I was going for it at the right moment in time. But
here's the one thing I will say: if Paul Verhoeven said he was going to direct a Batman movie, I could not get to the theater fast enough to see it.
Listen, man, if he gets Schwarzenegger back to reprise his role as Old Man Mr. Freeze, I'm in. Because you know they can work together, and Paul Verhoeven brings some of the best out of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's one of those arguments I'm going to die on because Total Recall is probably my favorite performance, maybe of all time, of Arnold Schwarzenegger. But that's a discussion for another time. But this movie, on the other hand, was something else, man, because I'm just going to say this right off the bat. Like, I've been waiting for a Batman movie with a voiceover, and they finally gave it to us, man, and the whole detective noir stuff. Totally into it. I love the old school feel with the voiceover, even though some of the dialogue at the beginning where he's like, I'm a nocturnal animal, I couldn't help but think of Cartman and the Coon in South Park, that parody, because he said some of the exact same lines, and I was just like, oh man, they went with the Cartman style lines. I don't know if they realize that or not. But on the other hand, it's, it worked out, and with the journal and everything, I've been waiting for a voiceover Batman movie forever, so I finally got it, and I was sitting next to one of my best friends, and he just looked at me, and he knew how much of a mark I was, and he's a big-time Batman mark, bigger than I am. So when the voiceover happened, we were just giddy little schoolgirls.
Was kind of getting the Rorschach vibes as well with the voiceover, and yeah, I think that this movie was a home run. I think of all the real world staff members, I think I'm the one that actually likes it the most. I think this is genuinely one of the best superhero movies that has ever been put to film. Yet I still, in my Batman rankings, Brian, it's only third behind The Dark Knight and Batman Mask of the Phantasm. I don't think this is as good as those two, but I think in terms of the modern superhero movies, the fact of the matter is we went from Spider-Man No Way Home to this movie, and we're going to get Doctor Strange in a couple months. And that is a hell of a run. We're just going to pretend that Morbius isn't happening in April. And what a trio of superhero movies that we are getting from DC and from Marvel, and just bringing all that history, bringing that iconic imagery. I think you can make an argument. It's like, why the hell do we need another Batman? Why do we need this version? So to me, I think this movie almost walked in with a handicap of, like, why does this movie need to exist? How many versions of Batman do we need? Because we know that Michael Keaton is coming back. We know that there is a Batwoman show on CW. There's a Batgirl movie coming out on HBO Max. We know that Ben Affleck has been floating around as a Batman in the Justice League and the Justice League, the Snyder Cut. So we know the Batman is still very much prevalent, and he is one of the most interpreted superheroes that's out there. So to me, this movie had to justify its existence, and the angle that they took, turning it into more of a detective story, even if the detective story didn't completely hold water for the whole movie, hold water, see what I did there, Brian, but I think this movie does just a great job of not only making Batman a detective, but also having Batman in the suit. I'm so curious as to your thoughts on this, because I don't think we have ever had a superhero movie where the character is in the suit for so much of it. Like, we have like 3 scenes with Bruce Wayne. Otherwise, Robert Pattinson is in the Batman suit, and he's just kind of hanging out. He's hanging out with the cops. He's in action scenes. So I just love the fact that we get so much of Batman. We don't get Batman. We don't get Robert Pattinson unmasking and kind of wearing the costume, but not wearing the mask. Like, he is in it for most of the movie, and I really, really love that.
Yeah, the first time we see him, he's in the suit in that tremendous entrance, like Darth Vader style entrance. By the way, that was awesome visually. I love the fact that they went with this direction because we're so used to seeing the playboy, billionaire playboy, Bruce Wayne. And, I was discussing this with a lot of my friends because all of my friends have seen the movie already. And this idea of what Bruce Wayne should be, what he should be at this point, and we were kind of discussing it like, well, it's year two. So, in a different universe, Batman is kind of taking it slow. He's just really, really angsty. Some of that millennial angst, you know what I mean? And he's just dark and angry, emo, but justified, because of the violent death of his parents and all that. And he doesn't go out. He's not a public figure. He doesn't even go out in public for himself. So I dig this interpretation because based on the arc of Bruce Wayne in this movie, by the time you get to that scene, spoiler alert, everybody, we're going to spoil this all over the place, but by the time you get to the end, or not the end, maybe 2/3 with Alfred in the hospital scene, that one of the most fantastic scenes in the movie. I think it's my favorite, actually. Basically, you're going to see where Bruce Wayne's going to become in the sequel because he's got to take the name, the Wayne name, and honor it, not just like with the Batman, because basically that's what he wanted originally. Like, my legacy is going to be the Batman, and Alfred's like, no, your legacy has to be honoring the Wayne name. And I think that's going to lead to him to being that billionaire playboy out in the public a lot. You're going to get that slick, clean, slick black hair of Bruce Wayne. Robert Pattinson is going to probably get some color, not blood, but like, some actual like color in his cheeks because he is so dark and emo and in the Batman suit so much that he's gone like pale. And that even to the point where if he sees sunlight that he's got to wear sunglasses because his eyes are so affected by it, which is a great little touch because that honestly was a thing for me when doing overnight shifts. By the time the sun was rising, I was like, oh, fucking A, man, this hurts. So I understand that. And that's a real thing for people who are up all night. So those little details, plus the way that he wore the makeup, and then when he takes the mask off, you see the streaks of sweat and all that like realistic detail. So I appreciate it, man. And we've seen a lot of Bruce Wayne as the billionaire playboy anyway. It's cool to see him in this role and then let him evolve into that role as he gets a little older, because he's still he's playing like a younger 20s kind of Batman, even though he's probably in his mid 30s already, but he's got that young look. So he's playing it off like a young 20s kind of kid, second year of Batman. So it kind of makes sense. And, like I said, that scene with Alfred in the hospital, it shows you where he's going to become in the sequel. So we're probably going to get all the nice cars and all that kind of thing. And everyone's going to be like, oh, wow, look at Bruce Wayne. He's just such a change of persona, and then all of a sudden you see him in the boardroom meetings and all that kind of thing. I bet you that's where it's leading to, because right off the bat, we saw that in Batman Begins, he embraced the role of being the billionaire playboy right off the bat. This kind of takes a different route. He takes a couple years to get there. So I like that change.
So I have 3 hot takes that I'm going to give to you throughout this podcast. This feels like a good time for hot take number 1. I believe that Robert Pattinson is the best live action theatrical Batman ever. And those couple of caveats are in there because, of course, I think Adam West and Kevin Conroy in their own ways are very iconic, but they're very much in terms of the TV show, even though there are theatrical movies of Batman 66 and Phantasm, I consider more of the TV realm. But for me, Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman. But in terms of live action theatrical, I think Pattinson's the best. And I say that with all due respect to Michael Keaton, who in some ways is my live action Batman, but just what Pattinson brings to the screen. I mean, he literally has the perfect jawline for the suit. And again, the fact that he is in the suit so much and he brings such a different energy to Bruce Wayne. I love the fact that this feels completely different than any of the other interpretations. Like, you compare this to Michael Keaton, it's so different. I mean, I guess in some ways it feels a little Val Kilmer-ish, but even that, I mean, that's a very loose examination of it. I mean, I'm just so impressed with his performance. And, I think there were a lot of people that were making jokes about, he was in Twilight, now he's in Batman. But for me, he's somebody who's been very good in a number of movies over the years. And I wasn't huge on Tenet, but I think Robert Pattinson was very good in Tenet. So I was very excited to see what he could do. And I was, I guess the trailers concerned me a little bit just because it really felt like they were going in a specific direction. But I'm very glad that they went in that direction, but they they put a twist on it with the idea of, oh, Batman is going from vengeance to hope. And that is probably my favorite aspect of the movie, is the fact that it actually feels like this movie is about Batman. It does not feel it's about Gordon. It doesn't feel like it's about the villains. This actually feels like it is about Batman as a detective and as a character. And that's something that even in the Christopher Nolan movies, I think we lose sight of that. I mean, he really isn't Batman, especially like Dark Knight Rises. He really isn't in the suit that much. And he really isn't Batman for that long in terms of the continuity. But here, he's been Batman for a couple of years. He is in the suit for so much of it. And again, I think Pattinson, he's got tremendous chemistry with Zoe Kravitz, so we can get into that a little bit later. I think his banter with Jeffrey Wright's Jim Gordon is fantastic. We did not get enough of he and Alfred together, so I'm hoping that we get more of it in future movies. But Robert Pattinson is excellent in this movie, and I walked away being tremendously impressed. And I walked away, honestly, tremendously impressed with just what his character is going to become. That maybe we're going to get a slightly lighter version. Like, I expect Sad Boy Bruce Wayne, but maybe we'll get more humor in the next one. Maybe we'll get a little bit lighter of a touch because he's more about hope. So I don't want it to go full Adam West, but that is what my hope is, because this movie was about going from vengeance to hope, and I want to see a continued evolution in the probable sequel. But yeah, that is hot take number one, Brian. Robert Pattinson, the best live action theatrical Batman ever.
Top three. I think we're gonna get there eventually, because I mean, this is just one movie, you know what I mean? It's hard to really judge that because a lot of the other Batman had multiple movies to play with. We're probably going to get there because he's already top three for me. For me personally, it's still Ben Affleck, only because I love that older Batman kind of appeal. But we're not even close to that. We're years, before that. So I want to see this evolution, because right now, I think the strength for me when I see Robert Pattinson as Batman on screen is his eyes. Because I don't know if you noticed, like when he walked, especially in the beginning, like he walks in the room in the mayor's house and everyone's looking at him and he's looking at everyone else, but he's also looking at like all the details like a detective would, and he's looking at the picture, and at one point he's looking at a picture on the wall, and then one of the photographers on staff for the cops just takes a picture of what Batman's looking at. So it shows you like, okay, whatever he's paying attention to, you got to pay attention to, and these little things, but he's doing it with his eyes, you know what I mean? And the way he looks at things, you can tell like the wheels are turning in his head kind of deal. And I think that's probably one of his strengths, because with the limited dialogue that the Batman character does have and the way he's got to cover up his voice, there's not a lot of like bravado type acting, going over the top kind of acting. It's very, subdued, nuanced, but you're also got to do a lot with your eyes because of that. And because everything is so darkened around him and you see the brightness of his eyes, he's able to act with his eyes. So I think that was one of the strengths of his performance, because you don't really get a lot of that with like Christian Bale or any of the other ones, but I feel like he's the one that used his eyes the most and can communicate facially, and to pull that off and do a detective story and have like, like by the end of the movie, like when he's banging against the wall against the Riddler or the glass, like you can tell like he's got like this anger in his eyes. So, credit to Robert Pattinson, man. He pulled it off. I had no doubts about him because I've known about his career since Twilight, even though I haven't seen none of his movies at all except the Harry Potter ones. I still have faith in him because I knew that he's doing the right stuff, and he was, getting a lot of Indie Award nominations and that kind of thing, and he was on the right path. So I was cool with it. I wasn't one of the people that was making fun of him, because a lot of my friends were like, the dude from Twilight, and like they had no idea he had this, career post Twilight for like 10, 12 years of doing indie work that kind of made him this great actor that he is right now. So I thought he did a great job. I'm looking forward to the sequel. And, you know, you mentioned like the lighter tone, hopefully for the sequel. You can kind of see that already because the idea of like the dawn coming, right? They mentioned the dawn coming in the Dark Knight. They have this great image of the sun coming up most of the time at the end, towards the end of the movie. While in the whole most of the movie, it's raining, so there's this dark, rainy gloominess to it. By the end, there's that sense of hope. You know what I mean? So that it's like the rain is like the vengeance, and the hope is coming. That transition, and you see the sunrise, and then you get that shot of, Gotham Square Garden, and then when the sun rises, it's kind of like that, the sun is rising and giving you hope kind of thing. So that's kind of where they're going, I hope. And they shoot more of it during the day because there's all these elements of Gotham that we never explore. We always see the dark side. Sometimes there's great architecture that we don't see in Gotham. Like some people interpret Gotham kind of like the Tim Burton kind of style, and there's this great architecture that we never see. So hopefully we get some of that too and kind of explore the artistic nature of Gotham, or the artistic side of Gotham.
You don't really get a lot of wide shots in this movie. This movie is so focused on close-ups. And when we talk about the chase scene a little bit later, we could probably get more into that. But I think that you could almost make the argument that maybe there could have been even more scope to add to the epic feelings, especially when you get toward the end. But I think that the way I see it is that Batman is literally in the shadows at the beginning of the movie. And then at the end, he is literally bringing people into the light. I mean, it's not subtle, but I think it really works because, again, we're talking about a mythic superhero character. So I think when you're dealing with that kind of imagery, I think it's acceptable to do things like that. But I think it really represents his growth. I mean, I think it's a genuinely great scene because one of the things that I kind of am noticing more and more is the idea of superheroes saving normies, which I think a lot of movies have gotten away from, but you see it a lot in this movie. You see Batman saving a lot of just normal, regular Gotham people. And I think of that scene specifically at the end where he's leading them into the light. But you even get it with Batman saving the orphan, or he's not an orphan, but he kind of looks like one. I mean, I think that Bruce / Batman sees a lot of him, and that's one of the reasons that he kind of develops this attachment to him, because we see him at the beginning just being very sad after his father has died. We see him again in the church at the funeral. When Bruce Wayne, notably, is the one that actually saves him from being run over by a car. And then we kind of see him saving him again at the end as Batman. So I love that idea as well. The fact that we are seeing him kind of, saving this young boy, and just seeing the idea of Batman as being a symbol of hope by saving people. I don't want to see Batman branding people like Ben Affleck. I want to see Batman actually being a hero, and that especially where we got to at the end. Like, I love the idea that we went on this journey, and in the end, Batman realizes that hope is the right answer, and I really like that.
I guess from here we should talk about what Zoe Kravitz. I thought
we could go a number of different directions. Yeah, I mean, Zoe Kravitz is.
Yeah, let's go with Zoe Kravitz, because I got this, because I'm staring at the pop in front of me of Michelle Pfeiffer, because it's on my desk, so I can't help but think of it. But I felt like she did a great job. I want her back in the sequel, but I don't know if there would be a story to tell, and maybe just wait till the third one. But I thought like her arc with Falcone, spoiler alert, Roman Falcone is her dad, and totally just didn't even acknowledge her as a daughter. You know how that goes. Affairs in the club. You know how that goes. So very much, like this family drama going on. It's kind of weird. Some of these elements felt like a lot of melodrama that my mom would watch on the Filipino channel type shit, because this is a lot of the stuff on the Filipino channel is kind of similar, man. Like, you're my secret daughter. We're a part of the mafia. We're gonna be on this chase. Like a lot of Filipino dramas are like that right now. So, I was kind of thinking like, with the whole Batman thing, you wouldn't have noticed. Like, this is kind of like borderline soap opera right now, but it really worked because it added this tension between her and Falcone. It's like, does Falcone know that's her daughter, and does he really treat her like a daughter? And he's kind of treating her like just another like girl in the club, and that's kind of creepy too. You know what I mean? So there was this weird like relationship going on, but it really added to the drama because when she says the fact that that's her dad, it turns it into this whole other thing. And then then she's going undercover in the club for Batman or whatever. But she does a great job, and it's not like she's doing it just because like she's the romantic interest. Like she's got actual stock in the game. Like her friend was murdered, and she wants revenge. And Falcone's in the way, and Batman needs help finding Riddler, and Riddler is tied to whatever's going on with the Falcones and all that kind of thing going on. So it's all tied together. But she has her own, stake and claim in the movie. And I thought she did a great job. I think she's probably number 2 behind Michelle Pfeiffer in terms of Selena Kyle. I thought she did a way better job than Anne Hathaway. Like in terms of like me wanting to see more, I definitely want to see more of her as Catwoman than I didn't want is Anne Hathaway as Catwoman. So that's kind of my take on it. And I thought she did a great job. The stuff with the milk was a little too cutesy, but that's just for me. But I get it because you have to stylize a little bit of it, and that's not, because she's not Catwoman. She's Selena Kyle, and they did the same thing in Dark Knight Rises. They never say the name, but they imply it, like when they say the cat and the bat.
I think that Zoe Kravitz brought an electricity to this movie that we haven't seen in quite some time. I think this is one of the horniest superhero movies in a long time. And I think, like, she should almost be considered her own sexuality after this movie. Just the look of the character, the behavior. She is just adding something to this movie that I think superhero movies desperately need. They need an edge of sexuality in them. The Marvel movies especially are so asexual that there are a lot of criticisms of the MCU that I think are bunk, and I don't buy it, but I think the idea of the characters not being sexual is actually starting to become a bit of a problem, and I like the fact that this movie kind of feels like a response to that. And I think back to when we talked about the 1966 Batman and just the chemistry between those two actors, Adam West and the actress who's playing Catwoman, whose name I can't remember. But I think you get a lot of that here. You get some of the same Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Keaton energy as well. But here they're not necessarily protagonist, antagonist. They're kind of on the same side. I really like that part. I don't know how to feel about the Falcone reveal and the fact that he is her father. It kind of makes the world feel smaller, and I kind of hate when movies do that. So it's just, I kind of understand the choice there because it's about offspring and their fathers, and you get that with Bruce Wayne, and you get that with Catwoman. You sort of get it with, I mean, I think we were both waiting for the Riddler's father to be revealed as the journalist, and that may still happen, but it hasn't happened yet. But Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, it's so good that I think one of the cheesier parts of the movie is actually the technology where they have the contact lens. It felt a little too high tech for this version of Batman, but the scene where Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle goes into the club, her banter with Batman is so good that it almost redeems the entire idea for me. So yeah, Zoe Kravitz is so good in this movie. Now, we talked about Zoe Kravitz. Let's talk about Colin Farrell as Penguin. The idea of using a fat suit is problematic. Let's just be clear about that. But I love the idea that Colin Farrell could just disappear into this character. I think it is a perfect use of the Penguin because in this movie, the Penguin is not designed to be the main villain. He's not designed to be the most important one. And I think that the way that they use his character is tremendous. And I think that generally using more than one villain can end up being problematic. But in this specific case, because of how they use Penguin and just the performance and how Weasley he is, I loved it. And I think that the chase scene in particular is going to stand the test of time. I think that the chase scene between Penguin and the Batmobile, kind of our introduction to the Batmobile, that might be the best chase scene since Mad Max Fury Road. And the thing that makes it even better is the fact that it's almost all completely done in close-ups. And I am very pissed that the trailer revealed the money shot, because I think if they had not shown it in the trailer, I think the moment when the Batmobile emerges and then Batman, you see the upside down walk, I think that would have been even more iconic than it was. But I think the trailer kind of spoiled it.
Yeah, I loved this version of Penguin. I can tell, like, he's covering up the fact that he's smarter than he lets on, especially like with the stuff with the Spanish stuff and the riddle and the El and the Ah and the Ratada Alada, whatever that is. It just shows you like he's able to communicate in multiple languages, and he's a little smarter when it comes to languages than Batman. So he's got this intelligence to him that he's kind of like not totally showing 100%. Because even when he first meets Batman, he's fucking with him. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, wait a minute, that's the mayor. Oh, I didn't notice that was the mayor. You know, he's just fucking with him, you know, and saying the right things to not get caught. And I love that about him. So this version of Penguin is very smart. I feel like, and he's hiding a lot of that smart to it. The chase scene is incredible. It's visually spectacular. Here's my hot take. Probably one of two hot takes on this podcast. So here we go. As awesome as that was, when it's revealed that they went after the Penguin for no reason because there was no actual connection to the Penguin because they misinterpreted the Riddler's clue from the L and the La in Spanish and just totally misinterpreted it. It just made me realize, oh my God, that means the chase was for nothing. And I know it's like, okay, there's a lot of these things in movies where ultimately these scenes mean nothing because it was something else or blah, 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 red herring. But I'm like, oh my God, like, did they just cause like, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars in damage to Gotham City public infrastructure for a mistake in Ellen Law? Like, is that the ultimate conclusion to that chase sequence? Like, I wish it meant more once, you know, with this reveal that it really didn't need the Penguin or anything, or wasn't even connected to the Penguin at all. It's kind of ruined it for me. I was like, what? Why did you reveal that? Why didn't you even say that? Just make it some kind of connection, because now it just makes it seem like this chase was like for nothing. I mean, it's awesome. Don't get me wrong. It's spectacular. It's awesome, especially when it's the upside down shot. The first time I was marking out. The second time I realized, wait a minute. If this is just a misinterpretation, then did we just cause all this damage?
Yeah, I guess that didn't really bother me as much because I think the chase scene was just so good that I think, I mean, look, you could probably cite the Penguin for a lot of things. So if they weren't going to get him for this, they could probably get him for any number of things. But I don't know. It just it doesn't bother me. And look, I mean, if that is a fair nitpick, but for me, it's just like it's about the journey to get there, and the scene is just so good that anything else is kind of superfluous. Let's talk about Peter Skarsgård. He's basically in the movie for like 10 minutes, but me, the scene where he meets Zoe Kravitz is very good. Just like being just creepy enough, but not being like a total creep. The capturing by the Riddler and then ending up at the church and just his interactions with Batman. I kind of think Peter Skarsgård steals the movie for a few minutes, and that's really impressive in a movie with a lot of good performances. I think Peter Skarsgård is really good in this movie, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on his character because, like, he gets blowed up, so he's not ultimately that important. But I think it created a lot of tension, and it really sticks out in my memory as being a very good scene.
I think what it is like I don't know if he was really high or stoned, but everyone in that room, in that club within the club, I think it was the 44 or something like that. But everyone in that room was like stoned off their ass, and they were just so fucking high. And the way he was acting was like, God, I feel like I've met some of these people, or I met someone just like these, you know, what he's going through right now at some like wrestling shows back in the day or something crazy like that, or back in college, because like he had it down. Believe me, he had it down in terms of acting stoned as fuck at a club and meeting a hot chick and just kind of losing yourself to a hot chick stoned as fuck. Because he did exactly that. He let his guard down and started talking, and that's what Batman wanted. And he got all the information from him. And I thought that was great. I thought it was just a really fantastic performance. That slimy, grimy performance. Like, this is the district attorney of Gotham City, and look at this guy. And then he gets caught. And then he gets set in the trap, and then it becomes like the Saw style portion of the movie, which I appreciate because I don't really like the Saw movies, but if you're going to do it right, do it right. And they did it right here. And then going in, I was making the joke like, you know, I wonder if the Riddler's going to cut some dude's head off because that's kind of what they did in 7. You know what I mean? So I was joking. And what do you know? He blows someone's head off, like in a church. I mean, how crazy does that get for being the Riddler? Like, that's so much. Oh, we'll talk about it in a second, but that's more on Paul Dano. But um, when he's in the chair and he's getting the phone call, he's got to answer the riddles, and the fact that he refuses to give up Falcone's name, like that was great because it just shows you how much of a slime ball he is, how much of a like true like ugly human being he is, and the fact that he's the district attorney of Gotham City just shows you, and it just shows it kind of proves Riddler right that how corrupt Gotham is and how fucked up it really is. But this kind of leads, back door for Harvey Dent, because Harvey Dent takes over as the district attorney. So that kind of ties into the future. So it does make sense that you kill off the district attorney this way in such a highly dramatic fashion that ties into this the craziness of the Riddler and what he's willing to go put people through to kind of reveal the truth in the light. So for the 15 minutes he was in it, he did steal the show. And leaving the movie, I felt like he was the best performance, but only because he was just so into it. And for the whole time, he was just like stealing the show. But that's kind of how I feel. I can't really say that he was the overall best because of the 15 minutes compared to 2 hours plus that Pattinson was as Batman, but he definitely left an impression in my mind.
For sure. So we're going to talk about Paul Dano in a second, because I guess you could say I kind of have two hot takes in one. I know that a lot of people really love the Paul Dano performance. I am here to tell you, I think the Paul Dano performance is fine. I think John Turturro is actually the best villain performance of the movie, just because he brings a totally different interpretation of the Carmine Falcone character. Like, Tom Wilkinson was so bad in Batman Begins as Falcone. Oh my God, he's just so bad. John Turturro is able to play this character so cool, but also sadistic. Like when you hear him on the tape when he chokes the girl out, like he's so good in this movie. I love the scene in the pool hall where he talks with Bruce. It's so good. The Carmine Falcone stuff kind of is a mixed bag for me in terms of just the mafia stuff feels a little bit tacked on at first until like you're slowly unraveling it. But man, John Turturro is so good in this movie. And yeah, that for me. That's the first part of the take, and we could get to the Paul Dano stuff because I have a very specific rant that I need to go on.
Yeah, he kind of gave me, and I guess this is what they were going for, and then I looked it up later on, but John Huston in Chinatown, like that's kind of the vibe I was getting, but more so, like even more subdued, because when it's revealed that he's really like running everything, I was like, well, that was kind of obvious, but not so obvious, because it's clear like he's a big time player in the mob world, but how connected is he to, actual Gotham politics? And you find out he's actually running like everything. So he's this really big background character, and the way he kind of portrays it is not so over the top as Batman Begins version. So I appreciated that. He seemed like this cool, calculated, almost Tarantino-like kind of villain. So that really played off well. I wish they didn't kill him off, but it was necessary for the plot to do so. It's unfortunate, but they kind of have to move on from it. But based on what he did in this movie, man, it's clear like there's this great backstory history that if they ever wanted to kind of retell maybe on like the Penguin show in a flashback or something like that, they can easily do so. Because I would love a little more, you know what I mean? Maybe a little younger Carmine to see how he was in like the 80s and 90s. So, yeah, he did a great job. And, that mustache was really, very, I mean, something about the little details like that. Like if he didn't have a mustache, I don't think the performance would be as good. You know what I mean? It's just like little things like that. But that's just me and my little theories when it comes to like details on characters.
So Paul Dano is the main villain as the Riddler gets his time to shine. We've really had only in terms of theatrical Batmans. We didn't have a Riddler in the Nolan version. We've only had Jim Carrey, and that is just the complete opposite of this one. But Brian, I want to tell you, Jim Carrey's Riddler is the smarter of the two Riddlers, because he was able to put it together that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and that tickles me to death. The fact that Paul Dano's Riddler he's not able to put it together. So, do you want to respond to that, or can I go on my rant?
I mean, we both have rants about this. It just kind of depends. Like, my rant is that he didn't know that he was Batman until he starts questioning that maybe he is Batman after their one-on-one confrontation in Arkham Asylum. And from my interpretation, he assumes Batman is a working class man because he assumes he knows what the tool is that killed the mayor. And at first, Batman just thought it was like a murder weapon, thought nothing of it. And he knows nothing of what that tool is because he's a rich dude and has everything done for him. So he doesn't know what a working class tool would look like. So in the Riddler's mind, Batman and Bruce Wayne can't be the same person because Bruce Wayne is rich and upper class and Batman is working class and maybe lower class perhaps, just like the Riddler, because Riddler and Batman or Paul Dano's Riddler thinks that Batman and him are more similar because they are like from a similar background. He assumes. That's what he assumes. But once he finds out that he doesn't know about the tool or anything like that, he realizes, oh shit, maybe he is Bruce Wayne, but he doesn't really fully know it towards the end. That's my interpretation.
So here's the thing that really bothers me. I love the idea that this Riddler is so meticulous, he's so intelligent, and he just seemingly knows everything. But because he's a villain, he has to have a fatal flaw. This is his fatal flaw. Not being able to put that puzzle together is probably what separates him from being fully successful. And that, to me, like, you want that in your villains. And I love that it is kind of the thing that causes the Riddler to not ultimately be successful. So I love this idea. The other thing to me is, so people were talking about the idea that, it would be disappointing if somebody found out who Batman was, that it was Bruce Wayne. Let's go back to each of the Batmans, Brian. Let's go into the history books. Let's go back to Batman 1989, when Alfred literally brings Vicky Vale into the Batcave and reveals that Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person. Later on in the movie, Joker also finds it out because, of course, Joker kills Bruce Wayne's parents in that movie. Let's go to Batman Returns as Michael Keaton's version of the character unmasks to Max Schreck and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. So he reveals himself there. Batman Forever, the Riddler finds out. I don't remember, does Case Meridian find out? I know the Riddler does, but I think Case Meridian does too, right?
I think she finds out and then kind of gaslights him at the end saying, oh, no, he's not. To the Riddler in the asylum.
Batman and Robin, I don't think, I guess you could say Alfred's niece, maybe? You could say that?
Yes, that was it, because I made the joke, a blonde woman in each of the 4 Batman movies finds out that he's Batman. Michelle Pfeiffer.
That is correct, yes. Batman Begins, Rachel finds out. Ra's al Ghul knows. The Dark Knight, again, Rachel finds out. Harvey Dent finds out, right? Or no?
No, he doesn't know. The only one that knows is Rachel.
So it's only Rachel. So The Dark Knight does not have a reveal. But Dark Knight Rises, that's when he lets the cat out of the bag to everybody, from Jim Gordon to Catwoman to Ra's al Ghul's daughter. So basically in every movie except for The Dark Knight, Bruce Wayne and Batman are revealed to somebody as being the same person. I, for one, think it's actually incredibly fresh to not do that and to just have the Riddler completely miss it. And quite honestly, with the way that Bruce Wayne behaves, there's no way you could logically put it together because Bruce Wayne is such a sad boy in this movie. That's my rant, Brian.
So we're kind of on the same page. Like, I was in the the first time I watched it, I'll admit I was kind of sleepy because I went to like a 8:00 show, and then by then it was like 10:45, and you get a little sleepy. So at first I misinterpreted what they were saying, because then by the end of it I was like, oh shit, so he's the son of the journalist that Thomas Wayne had killed, and that was completely wrong, I guess, or it's yet to be revealed because they didn't even touch on that. But yeah, that's the second time around I was like, okay, so he didn't know that he thought Batman and Bruce Wayne were 2 different people, because from my side of it, it's the tool, and it's all about working class hands, and because from a certain perspective, I've had that instance where I'm like, what fucking tool is this? And then I had that learning experience on the job, and they had to teach it to me because from my experience I'd never had that. So that's kind of how it is. So Batman's still learning, and that's another kind of theme that ties into this Batman movie, year 2. He's still learning to become the world's greatest detective. He's really great, but he missed the L in the law, so he's definitely got to work on his languages. And then he missed this, the Riddler missed this, but still, there's still some things that are missing in terms of like skill set, in terms of becoming the world's greatest detective. This kind of ties into that. So I like this arc and where they're going, and this kind of ties into that. And that scene, I thought, was really well done because that's the only interaction they have. They never physically touch in the movie. It's a barrier between them. So I thought that was refreshing because I was like, oh, he's just going to punch him in the face. But then he never even broke through the glass. So that was cool. So there's yet to be this confrontation, like a physical confrontation between the two. But even then, it's like, do you really want to see the Riddler in a physical confrontation? Because this interpretation is like, well, he's just going to get his ass handed to him in one punch. So what would be the satisfaction in that? So this kind of leads to the finale, which kind of comes out of nowhere, which we kind of talk about. But essentially, it's this kind of like religious, kind of like Genesis, the Book of Genesis, the Flood, Noah's Ark, that kind of interpretation to it. You know what I mean? So, and then it's just like the city is flooded, and then it's kind of got this anarchy, and then this kind of martial law feeling that you got in Dark Knight Rises. So again, like leaning into the older movies as well. So I like where they're going with that. Do we go into a second movie where it's still flooded? I don't know. That'd be a really interesting take. But from here, who knows? But it also feels like the Riddler kind of won because the plan worked. It's the second part of the plan where you got these I don't want to say it, but QAnon type people that he got behind him to go on a massive shooting spree in the garden during the flood. That part didn't obviously go down because Batman saved him.
They're very clearly, there's some loaded imagery going on because they're clearly going for the vibe of these are kind of hardcore right wingers. And some people have brought up that this is reminiscent of the Capitol attacks of January 6th, 2021. So there's that. And, you've got the beginning where Batman very clearly saves an Asian person. So there's definitely some imagery there, whether that's by design or whether it's by accident, perhaps. But they're clearly playing with some ideas in this movie. And I'm not sure, especially in the first case, when at the beginning, I don't know if it totally works, but they're clearly going for something here. Matt Reeves is clearly trying to make a statement.
Yeah, and I think it kind of it worked for me, especially when he had the guys, gave the instructions to what to wear, where to get the bullets, and where to get the guns, and like those people got together, and it was fucking scary. But the scary part is to me, and I was talking with some of my friends, but like they had to have filmed that before that happened, January 6th. They had to have, because I think a lot of this was like already shot in 2020, and that was 2021. So that's kind of the scary part to me is that it was almost. It feels similar, but it wouldn't. You know what I mean? It's just the timing thing. So that's kind of the scary part in terms of like the realism for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know when it was filmed or when this film was rewritten because undoubtedly the pandemic had to have some sort of effect on it. So in the end, I'm kind of not sure where to come down on this, but for me, ultimately, I just think it is a successful third act, even though I wish they had led into it a little bit better. Just a couple more notes here. Nothing too big in terms of conversation points. I do have one more hot take, but I want to kind of go through these points. I kind of thought we were going to go into the No Man's Land plot line in some way. I guess that would involve Batman's back also having to be broken by Bane again, but just with the flood and everything, I was like, oh, maybe we're going into No Man's Land. I believe there is another story with a flood that is not No Man's Land, so I don't think we're going in that direction. I love the idea of the rain and how real and tangible Gotham actually feels. And the rain throughout really does tease out the idea that there's going to be a huge flood. I guess you can't do it, but I think some climate change illusions would have been really interesting too. I also love the banter between Batman and Jim Gordon. I would have loved to have heard more. Brian, how did your theater react to Thumb Drive? Because there was a combination of laughs and groans, and it tickled me tremendously.
Some of the laughs there were laughs, but it was just like, oh, that was dark kind of laugh. You know what I mean? Like I laughed because I'm like, oh shit, that's a dark joke. You know what I mean? I was like, oh damn. But that was kind of the reaction of my theater. My theater was like, well, I'm talking about the first time. The second time around, it was more casual. There wasn't as many laughing around. But the first night was with the smart marks, and it was very much a dark humor interpretation.
So I also did not. There is a scene with the Riddler and the Joker, and I did not need the Joker in this movie because I know what Matt Reeves said about not having the Joker in the sequel, but I have to tell you, as played out as Batman is, I think the Joker in some ways is even more played out, and you can specifically thank Todd Phillips for that. I don't want the Joker in the next movie. I don't need the Joker in the next movie, and I genuinely hope that Matt Reeves lives up to his word and is like, no, we're not doing the Joker in the next movie, and they go in another direction, whether I don't know whether it's Two-Face or the Penguin is the main villain or you're bringing Catwoman back or what have you. I just don't want to see. I don't want to see the Joker in the next movie. And I know the Joker is the main event. Like if you want to build up to it for a third movie, fine. But there's so many interesting members of the Rogues Gallery. We could take a break from the Joker. We don't need it. And I think this is the one scene that I definitively would have cut because I don't think it added anything to the proceedings except an unnecessary tease.
I think what it's leading to was another tease at the end of the second movie that leads to a breakout, that leads to like an Arkham Asylum. That's kind of my theory. I think the third movie is going to be Arkham Asylum. I'm kind of putting that out there, but I think an Arkham Asylum movie under Matt Reeves' direction makes sense because Matt Reeves has this grounded realism, and you can really do the whole like mental asylum thing, like really, get it down well, like the games are. I played the first game. I got lost halfway through and gave up, but it's very immersive, and I want that kind of feel. So, yeah, I'm glad they went with the realism approach. Like, I don't want a Killer Croc in this universe. I don't want Poison Ivy like with giant fucking vines coming out all over the place. I don't want supernatural shit in this universe. I want it grounded. I want it real. Um, I don't want Solomon Grundy. I don't want Bizarro. Anybody. Um, Keep Superman out of it. Just keep it a Batverse. You know what I mean? And just grow these grounded characters. Freeze would work perfectly in this universe, I think, because you can give him the babyface turn that I've been wanting. But other than that, I mean, still, like, even with they added the maid, like I think we talked about this earlier. The maid leads to Dick Grayson. So them having the maid from the '60s show, Dick Grayson's aunt was the maid. So does this mean we get Dick Grayson in the next movie? I don't know, but from what I'm hearing and the kind of the buzz like people are talking about, you can build a whole Batverse, which is what they're already doing. Like make this the Iron Man, and then the Penguin show could be that expansion kind of show, like almost like Agents of Shield tried to be in the first season, and kind of expand this universe. And eventually, 10 years down the line, we can get like a Nightwing movie in this same universe with like an older Penguin as like a villain or something like that. You could tie all that in, and there's all like you said, the Rogues Gallery is huge. You can expand it. Because I want to see this Gordon. Because we hardly talk about Gordon, but I want to see this Gordon interact with all these different villains in the same way that that he's acting here with Batman. I want to see this performance that Jeffrey Wright gave, because he gave a great performance, I thought, as Gordon. But I want to see it with other characters throughout the Rogues Gallery. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Matt Reeves doesn't have to direct every movie, obviously. He can just kind of be like the Jon Favreau of it all, do the first three, expand the universe, hand it off. And not every movie has to be just dark and, gritty, obviously. But you can grow the universe and kind of expand it out a little bit.
I agree. So my final hot take, we have not mentioned this at all, but we do need to talk about the score. Michael Giacchino should win an Academy Award for his score. We've talked extensively about him when we talk about The Incredibles, especially. I think we had this conversation. He did win an Academy Award for Up a few years later, but to me, this is one of the best blockbuster scores in a very long time. Even John Williams' scores for the latter day Star Wars movies, the third trilogy, I don't think they hold a candle to this. I think in terms of this movie, I think what makes this movie into a 9 for me is Giacchino's score. I think it just elevates it so much. I can't say enough good things about the atmosphere it creates, just the way that it's used throughout the movie. Even the needle drop is perfectly used throughout. I can't say enough good things about just what the score did in terms of building atmosphere and using the theme, the fact that it's so hummable and has been stuck in my head. This is my final. I don't even know if this is a hot take, but Michael Giacchino's score is easily the best part of this movie. In a movie with a lot of pluses, this really elevates it into being a classic. And when I say he should win an Academy Award, I genuinely believe this. I don't expect the Batman to be nominated for Best Picture. I don't expect Robert Pattinson to get a Best Actor nomination or Matt Reeves Best Director. Michael Giacchino should absolutely win for his score.
Yeah, that's gonna happen 1 year from now, and I think it's gonna happen because there's never been a shoe-in like this in a while. Like, people feel like Dark Knight should have won Best Original Score. I don't even think it got nominated, did it? Or maybe it got nominated. That was when 2008 was not giving out respect to as much to, to the comic movies, even though they were giving us a bone with Heath Ledger because Heath Ledger died, but even though it was still an amazing performance. But yeah, this score, tremendous. It's the best Batman score ever. And that's saying a lot. And I've listened to the score like twice, 3 times. I even listened to it at work while folding laundry, and people came in and like, "Is that the Batman score? That's so dark." And I'm like, "Yeah, isn't it?" And so it's effective, man, and it's memorable, and it's reminiscence of like Darth Vader, that the Darth Vader theme. And I love how when we first see Selena Kyle, like I whispered to my buddy, like, "Dude, is that the Catwoman theme from Danny Elfman?" It's like, no, it's like a variation. Just listen, and it was just so like the score is very like retro and nostalgic yet new at the same time. I think that's what it is. Like he uses all these themes not just from like previous Batman movies, but like the Star Wars elements to it, like with the Darth Vader element to it. It had a lot going for it, man. So I agree. It's 100% a shoe in. I wouldn't call it the hot take because right now this seems to be like the consensus, and like it has to happen kind of thing. Like this has to happen. Like it was when the Heath Ledger one. Like he has to win. He's the dominant lead, like way ahead of everyone else in the category. Because I can't even think of a movie that would be even close to this unless I don't know. Is like Trent Reznor going to do another awesome score in the next couple months? I don't know. I don't think anything's going to top it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was tremendously impressed with this movie and the score and just about every aspect. So I walked away very satisfied with Batman, and I am looking forward to a sequel. And again, we are on a run. Again, we're pretending that the best part to me, Brian, is that Morbius opens on April Fool's Day. Like it almost adds to the comedy in a way. But again, we are going from Spider-Man No Way Home to the Batman to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and we are bringing together so much superhero history and legacy. It's what a time to be alive in terms of superhero fandom, and we've got Moon Knight to look forward to. We've got so much to discuss, but next week, Brian, we will be going back to discuss Spider-Man and continuing our look at the first season. So that is what you have to look forward to. Any final thoughts, Brian, before we in terms of the new releases, our episodes tend to be shorter. This is going to be one of the longer ones, but there's so much to discuss.
Yeah, 8.5 out of 10 for me. I think overall it's going to grow on me, maybe even to a 9. Depends on how many viewings. I definitely want to watch it one more time in the theater because there's all these little Easter eggs that, I watch the YouTube videos and they point all this little stuff out. But apparently 30 minutes into the movie, around 30 minutes, there's a big wide shot. So I guess you have to see the IMAX to really get a clear picture. But there's a wide shot of the club outside and you see the Riddler in the top left corner taking pictures of people in front of the club. So if they got that level of detail, man, unbelievable. Because second time around, I didn't notice that. So there's all these little details. I love it when there's all these little things that you have to go back and watch. It really entrances you. And that really, like, it gets inside your brain. Like, anytime I get a movie in my brain like that, it kind of, like, takes over a little bit. I got to go watch the movie again and kind of interpret. Thank God AMC has that pass. So I can see it, like, 3 times in a week. So it's not even that big of a deal when it comes to pricing anymore. But I'm definitely gonna watch this again. I didn't even get a chance to watch Spider-Man 3 again. So what does that tell you in terms of me wanting to watch Batman more so than Spider-Man 3 right now? But I guess that's just kind of the level of detail and the detective work and all that kind of thing. So
for sure, that is definitely something to look forward to. But yes, we will be getting back into this Spider-Man animated series next week. For Brian, my name is Jerome. Thank you so much for listening. Again, talk to you next week.
God, if the sequel has King Tut and Egghead, I am so not into it.